Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my Teamfight Tactics patch 9.15b patch note rundown. So Riot Games is doing this alternating weekly thing where every other week is a big patch and every other week in between the big patches are small patches. This is the weekly small patch, which they give out the patch notes the day of the hotfix or the day of the patch. I hate that. It means I can't really talk about the game before the game is already out. So in the future, Riot Games, I noticed one of the people who works at Riot Games, one of the 30 people who works on TFT watches this shit. Please move this to the day before like you do for your bigger patches, so I have a day to put out these patch notes before the patch comes out. Please. Anyways, this is by Riot Bjornana. I don't know who the guy is. Hello Tacticians, welcome to TFT 9.15b. This week we're making light changes from the outlier champions and items. We want to see how the meta naturally changes over the course of 2 weeks. With minimal input on our end, we're pretty happy to stay the meta at the moment. We're seeing different compositions compete at all levels. Some of the highlights, Karthus and KO lose some of their power as they're way too strong. We're also upping the damage. Hurricane, few other items give more choice in the department. Okay, let's talk about the meta real quick. So last big major patch, which was last week, 9.15a, I guess, like normal 9.15, is kind of made it so they reduce a lot of damage, so the mid game is a lot smoother. I think generally speaking, this game has a pretty good early mid game, and the late game is what became a big problem this patch. So too many times in this patch are games dragging out too long, and you have really strong 2-star legendary units, like the biggest outlier being Karthus, just smashing kids. Karthus, Kale, Yasuo, pretty much every 5-cost minion in the game except for MF. Rest in peace. I'm sorry. Is taking over games at the very top end. So like the top 4, pretty much everyone's getting to level 8 or 9 and getting these 2-star legendaries. So hopefully, I don't know if that's being addressed this patch, but hopefully next patch they can try to smooth out their late game more. There's a couple problematic champions. Like I think Cho'Gath is really strong. Karthus is really strong. Those are 2 I'd probably look to hit the most. I'd of course love to see pathing changes to assassins that I talk about every single patch, but I'm not going to see that. Yeah, that's pretty much the meta overview. Is that Cho's too strong, Karthus is too strong, and I think GA and Shiv are really game breaking. So I'd like to see nerfs on them. I heard that one, if not both of them, got touched. But let's keep going. Okay, Blitzcrank fix a bug that other allies properly prioritize to target the Blitzcrank ability again. Thank God. This meant that you can never backline Blitzcrank because no one would turn to focus the unit that you hooked. This is huge. I can actually keep backlining Blitzcrank and have people turn to kill the hook target. Really important. Really good fix. Elise. So Elise sucks ass. They nerfed her a ton and then demons became non-meta. Elise is probably the worst 1-cost unit in the game. I would never take her. I even sell pairs of Elise, which I don't do for anything else. So more buffs to Elise. I'm all about it. She's pretty weak right now. And so I am very happy to see more Elise buffs. Karthus, problematic champion, really crazy, especially because the late games are extending so long. I think that on top of taking less damage last patch made Karthus like monstrous. I like the lower damage. 100 less damage matters quite a bit, especially with 2 less targets at rank whatchamacallit, 2 or 2-star. He might actually need more nerfs, but I'm happy to get what I can. This is more than a 10% nerf on the unit, so that's a pretty considerable amount of power. And a little bit off his whatchamacallit, 1-star Karthus. So now people getting a random 1-star Karthus on 6 shouldn't piss you off as much as they did before. Kale, mana required to activate ulti got increased. I actually think this is a great change. I think Kale is just insane. Like once you get 2-star Kale, if you have like Blade Master or Yumi or like Shojin on Kale, she pretty much makes just units immune to damage. And I think that like, sure, if you want people to be like stupidly immune for long periods of time, like make her have to work for it. Make her be like have to have like 2 full items stacked or 3 items stacked to give her that super power spike. I think that she was probably too strong. I'm happy to see these nerfs as well. Pyke stun, great. I think Pyke's actually still a nutty unit, even with this stun duration. I would have actually maybe looked to reduce Pyke width. His ulti width is really wide. It has the hitbox of a freight train. Like I don't understand the hitbox sometimes because it just looks insane. And maybe as an assassin team comp and pirates need Pyke width to be this large, but it seems fairly deceptive. So I'm happy for like any kind of Pike nerf. I actually think in terms of the best two cost units in the game, Pike and Lucian are the top two. And now with this Pike nerf, it's probably Lucian that's the top one. So in the future, maybe Lucian gets nerfed, honestly, because that unit, ever since he got a 95 damage buff on his one cost ulti, is it's pretty powerful. But let's stop talking about him, who's not in the patch notes. Happy to see this Pike nerf. Honestly, I think he was a really strong unit and was passable as a 3-cost unit, not let alone a 2-cost unit. Rengar. Okay. How do I say this? I'm happy and sad to see this. I'm happy because I think Rengar was a little bit too overtuned. I think even in a 3 assassin composition with Void Brawler Assassins, which is a level 7 3 assassin composition that gives wild buff to your Rengar, I think Rengar was doing too much damage for a composition like that. However, I will say assassins suck ass, especially with stuff like GA in the game, and pathing being how it is. It's really hard to like get the right position on stuff. And so it's really, really difficult for me because I see this and I'm like, I kind of agree with Rengar getting nerfed. I think Rengar is too much of a hyper carry at the moment for the investment, but I think that just like, I can't recall the last time someone tried to go assassins, 6 assassins that wasn't me, and lost. It's just, I feel like the biggest problem with assassins is just that there's no ranged unit. So all your melee units jump in and they box up and they block each other. Is really annoying pathing wise. And you're always going to run into those problems, right? I think it sucks that like the way the assassins work right now, it's better to run 3 assassins than it is to run 6. Like that feels very tragic, honestly. I don't think this will make it so Rengar is unstackable. I do think that he still is technically the hardest carrying assassin in the game because he works the best with items is the way you should think about it. Because it's like his ulti gives him attack speed plus extra damage in a leap. He gets crazy amounts of attack speed and you stack items on top of him. He just goes insane. The only thing that can really match that is maybe like a Kali with Scarra'S. But I think Rengar has the higher ceiling for sure. Moving on. Veigar got a 50 damage to 100 damage increase. This doesn't matter at all. Like, this is really irrelevant. Actually, Veigar sees a lot of play right now because one of the meta comps is running Yordles, 3 sorcerer Yordles plus knights. Or 3 sorcerer is just Yordles. And you'll see it with Poppy, which is extremely powerful unit, super slept on. Probably one of the best units in the game, actually, is Poppy right now. And people just do not, outside of Keen, just have not realized like how stupidly strong that unit is. She is a complete monster. Or like with Gnar. And so that's how you hit 3 Yordles. You throw in the Veigar. And then he's part of the composition because you want the sorcerer buff and you want the Yordle buff. He's okay. He fulfills his job. With this, it's going to be a little bit better, but like I don't think it's really relevant. Yeah, this could have been anything. I'm surprised they're not doing anything else. It's really these. Is there another unit I would have liked to see on this champion list? I would have liked to see a small Cho nerf, I guess. Like even 50 damage off of his abilities would have been really, really nice. I don't necessarily know if we're in a situation where we need to target Draven yet. He's definitely an annoying unit. I would have liked to see a Cho nerf. I would have liked to see like a buff toward units like Lissandra and Cat. Yeah, I think Lissandra is actually a unit that could be buffed a lot. And maybe buffing MF as well. I think that she's the only 5-cost unit that I feel really bad about taking almost all the time. Moving on, let's keep going. So let's see. We have GA. GA is the best defensive item in the game. And I actually think this is not the way they should have targeted GA. So GA is GA's biggest problem in the game is that you retain the mana when you die. So let's just say to kill a unit, you'll charge its mana about 60 to 100%. So while it's rezzing, it de-aggroes all the units around them. And so he gets to res auto once or twice and immediately ulti, whatever the unit is. And that's how you get like insane value off of GA. GA essentially reads that like you're guaranteed this unit will use his ult. Regardless whatever happens, this unit will 100% ultimate in every single round. I would have much preferred that it just eliminates the mana as opposed to targeting the health. Because I think the inherent problem of GA's strength is still going to be there. As opposed to, 200 less health. Which don't get me wrong, that's a 20% nerf. That matters a decent amount. But I think that it'd be a lot more, like the mana is a lot more problematic. I also think something interesting that happens on live is that red buff and Morello sometimes bugs out GA to not heal. I think they need to be very clear about whether that's intentional or not. Like, I would prefer if it is intentional, then I don't have a problem, then GA doesn't even really need a nerf. But if it's not intentional, then like they should clarify that, because I still don't know. I think it's a bug because it happens occasionally here and there. It's really annoying when it happens. I would have actually preferred if like the way GA works is it heals like the amount of health. It can get reduced by healing effects, and healing effects in the game are then reduced to like 50% with Morello's and red buff. That way, like that's how you can balance healing in the game, and you don't feel completely bad about using stuff like redemption or stuff like Swain or anything that's really that really requires healing. BT. I guess that's something for a bigger major patch. But yeah, I don't necessarily know if this eliminates the problem of GA. I'd probably still build it. It's probably still a top tier item. Rageblade. This is a really interesting. They keep buffing this item. This item is not bad. The way. This is a really, really scary item to buff. It started at 3%. Okay. A patch later, they buffed it to 4%. A patch later, they buffed it to 5%. So it's almost double what it started at 2 patches ago. This item is probably one that people are going to look to put on units a lot more now, because it's just too effective, I think it's really, really strong, especially when you start stacking multiple attack speed items on things. I also think it's strong when you're with Rangers or Blade Master, stuff that is set, like increases attack speed or increases number of attacks. I think Rageblade is going to have definitely more use cases, and people will feel less bad about building it. Because it's just getting to the point where it's starting to look really, really, really nice. A lot of situations you have 2 core items on champions. Like Draven, you want like BT, Force, or Dragon's Claw and RFC, but then the third item is like situational. And then you'll have situations where on Rengar, you'll want like BTGA, but the third item you don't really know. I feel like the third item for a lot of these builds might be the most efficient with Rageblade now, which is kind of interesting. It's really, really, really interesting. I think this item is like decently powerful now, which I think is pretty good, because I don't think I saw any Rageblade on the last patch at all. Morello's, this item's broken. They reduced the effectiveness by 20%. It's still going to be very, very good. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad they nerfed it. I don't think it needed to be buffed, period, from the patch before, but definitely something that needs to be nerfed. The best items in the game right now before this patch are GA, Rapid Fire, Shiv, Morello's, in no particular order. And so seeing nerfs onto those items are kind of what I'm looking for. PD now allows Hodder to dodge critical strikes. This is just a big fuck you to Akali. Like realistically, this just says Akali, stop it. It makes it so you don't have to itemize both MR as well as PD on your one unit to counter assassins. I think assassins are in a decently bad spot. Eve ulti is technically still considered a crit as well. So I guess that as well. And Rengar, I just assume it's an auto attack, which it should have been dodged in the first place. But like, if it wasn't dodged, well then now it gets dodged. But for the most part, I read this more as like a anti whatchamacallit, a collie thing for sure. I worry about this because it's like I think this should be in the game. I do think having PD and not having it dodge spell crits is awkward, and but again, I think relatively speaking, assassin strength is at an all-time low. I'm really worried about assassins. The more I see stuff like this, the more I see stuff like Pike stun duration, Rengar attacks being nerfed. Like they're nerfing these for the meta compositions, but the 6 assassin compositions are the ones that get hit the most. And that's like the composition that I like first started playing in Dodo Auto Chess is a composition that I really like playing just in any kind of auto chess game. I think it's pretty hard to play 6, like really hard to play 6 assassins, and more so this patch. Hurricane bonus damage I increased by 50%. This is really interesting. Again, before I said Hurricane's biggest problem was that the component pieces were terrible. So if Hurricane had the same component pieces as Blade Master Spatula, you would see Hurricane being built every game. Because getting a 48% attack speed from the item base is like tremendously strong. Instead, Hurricane gives you 40 MR, which doesn't feel great even if magic casters are the meta. Increasing the bonus damage is really interesting though. I think it might be effective. Well, the first thing I think about it, okay, is that it's a great third Draven item. It's also, in my opinion, probably a great third Rengar item if you have RFC. It's something where you're gonna want with lifesteal, you get like a ton of lifesteal. You can hit multiple targets. If you chunk really hard, Hurricane's the thing for you. Volibear could work with Hurricane as well as shooting double lightning procs that also proc on hits. Could be very powerful. It's definitely something that you want to use on like an ultra stacked carry. It's never going to be an item you want just on a carry with one item or two. It's going to be something to round out like a two item core with a third item. There is, however, a very interesting build with Hurricane where someone found out that if you stacked 3 Hurricanes, each Hurricane procs auto attacks off the other Hurricanes. So with 3 Hurricanes on one unit, you auto 7 different targets. That's going to be better with this build. It's actually insane. I wanted to try it out, but it's really hard to get 3 spatulas in the game. Yeah, it's really crazy. There's I saw some Reddit posts about it. It's pretty much like what I assume to be core in a 6 glacial comp. You put it on Ashe and she shoots 7 autos at 7 different targets. Pretty much means you stun lock the entire enemy team. But to be able to get to that situation seems to be a little bit difficult. I'll give it a shot on this patch, especially with more base damage. Should be pretty interesting. But I do think, third item Draven, third item Rengar, third item Volibear, Hurricane has a lot of like interesting use cases here. Static Shiv fixed an issue where it deal more damage than intended when less than 4 targets are available. Okay, this is a huge bug. So what it did was it does 190 damage split between 4 units. So it does 360 damage. If there are only 2 units left, it did 180 between both of them. So if in any situation where you're proccing Shiv with less than 4 units, you're doing tons more damage. This was a huge bug fix. I don't know, people didn't notice it the first couple of days, so people were just like, wait a second, Shiv is actually going crazy, doing crazy amounts of damage. I actually think this helps a lot, on top of the fact that this naturally gets negated by night bonus. I don't want to be like someone who goes out and be like, we need to nerf Shiv immediately, like shave off 10 more damage. It's probably still ultra strong item, but I think especially with this nerf, this bug being fixed, should help a decent amount with Shiv being stupidly overwhelming. Sword of the Divine crit chance increased. Okay, Sword of the Divine was just god awful, actually. Really bad. Oh, someone did the math for this. Let me see if I can pull it up, actually. Holy shit. Ben did the math for this. My friend Ben, Mr. Cow, did the math for this. Okay, for both Demon proc chance, Curse Blade proc chance, Hush proc chance, Glacial, and Sword of the Divine. This was the graph for Sword of the Divine proc chance. I can't read math, so instead we're gonna go ahead and read his takeaway from this, which was when I remember when I looked at this, that it's fairly inconsistent for a buff that's not insanely strong, except for Assassin Comps. It's effectively a 33% damage increase unless combined with IE or Assassin Synergy. 10 seconds is a very long time in the game. I think you can use a bump up in proc rate and activates more significantly in a fight. Very volatile item, even increasing the proc rate up to 8% significantly bumps up the consistency to 56% chance at 10 seconds. And this was like a long time ago. This was back when Demon meta first started, so this was a patch and a half. Generally speaking, no one really builds Sword of the Divine. It used to be something that people thought was a core item on like Rengar or Zed, but it never really took off. You want Sword of the Divine on someone that's like a kind of your hyper carry in the assassin composition, usually Zed or Rengar. It's probably alongside like potentially like Rage Blade or Hurricane could be a great third Rengar item. I don't think anyone's gonna use this that much outside of assassin compositions. Assassin compositions are generally fairly weak in the first place, but again, could be a good second or third item for some specific champions. Draven, for instance, 100% crit chance on Draven with all of his multipliers, with Imperial, his own ulti, as well as Blade Master, could do a lot of work. The important math someone did after the patch is with 70% chance proc now, it now only has an 11% chance not to proc when it used to be 24%. And that seems pretty good. This is really high. Yeah, so anyways, I can see this as like a kind of rounds out a little bit more to comp. I do like the idea of buffing weak items. Stuff like Sword of the Divine, which never sees play. Stuff like Hurricane, which I largely consider to be the worst item in the game. Seeing these get buffed is much more appealing to me. Like, and when I see weaker units here get buffed, stuff like Elise, like that's very appealing to me as well. I want to see stuff like Elise get buffed. I want to see stuff like what's a bad unit like Katarina, maybe Evelyn to some degree get buffed. I don't know if Vayne needs another buff, maybe like a little bit more buff. Lysandre's a great example. I think she's garbage even after the buffs. Lysandre buffs, like I would much rather see weaker champions get buffed. And for the top end, just the super OP champions to go down. Really surprised we're not seeing a Cho nerf here. Would have loved to see at least 50 damage getting taken away from Cho. But rest of the stuff looks pretty good.